You know, sometimes you find something that just perfectly freezes a moment in time. Well, today, we're opening a scientific time capsule. It's a journal from over 3 decades ago, and it gives us this incredible snapshot of what science was dreaming about then, and it lets us see just how far we've come. We've moved into a reality that, back then, would have sounded like pure science fiction.
So what is this time capsule? It's the June 1989 issue of the American Medical Writers Association Journal. And I'm not talking about just any old magazine here. This is a direct window into the minds of scientists and doctors from a totally different era. It shows us their biggest hopes, their deepest anxieties, and the tools they thought were cutting edge, right before everything was about to change.
So let's take a look at what was on their minds. It's actually fascinating. They were totally excited about technology from the space race, stuff from NASA, like programmable pacemakers. They were just beginning to imagine how computers could manage patient data. And of course, they were dealing with huge challenges like AIDS and the stigma around mental illness. And get this, they were already worried that healthcare costs were, and I quote, devouring an ever-increasing share of our national wealth. Sound familiar?
Okay, so to really understand the massive jump we've made, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. What did progress even mean to a researcher in 1989? What were the rules of the game? This quote from the journal just hits the nail on the head. See, back then, progress was this steady, step-by-step process. It was all about gathering more information, collecting more data, and building slightly better tools. They were observers, describing the world as it was, not trying to rewrite its source code.
So, if the goal was that steady, piece-by-piece progress, what was the plan? How did they make sure science actually moved forward? Well, it turns out, pretty much everyone was following the exact same blueprint.
Even the way they wrote about their work was super rigid. It was called the IMRAD format: Introduction, Methods, Results, and Discussion. This was like a recipe that every single scientist had to follow. And it wasn't just for being neat and tidy. The whole point was to make sure any other scientist could read your paper and reproduce your experiment perfectly. Reproducibility was the absolute gold standard.
And when it came to technology, this was their moonshot. This was the big dream. They called them expert systems. The idea was to take a giant database of patient info, feed it to a computer along with a bunch of rules from top doctors, and have the computer spit out a diagnosis. Their ultimate goal was to build a machine that could think like a doctor.
So they had this roadmap, right? A very clear, logical, step-by-step plan for the future. But here's the thing about science. It doesn't always follow the map. In fact, it took a hard left turn into a territory that would have sounded like straight-up magic back in 1989.
Which brings us to right now. We are living in an era that's being defined by a whole new philosophy. We've moved beyond just observing life. Now we're in the business of engineering it.
Welcome to the world of synthetic biology. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it is completely revolutionary. Think of it like this. For centuries, we were just trying to understand the instruction manual for Legos. Now, we're grabbing the bricks ourselves and building brand new things that nature never even thought of.
And this isn't just a theory. This is happening right now. As a perfect example, a team of researchers has literally designed and built a programmable biological on-off switch. It's made out of custom proteins, and they call it LOCR.
The idea behind LOCR is actually super simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You've got 2 states. In the off state, the biological tool you want to use is trapped inside this protein cage. It's there, but it can't do anything. Then, you introduce a specific molecular key, and bam! The cage pops open, the tool is released, and the function is turned on.
So let's break down the pieces of this little machine. It's all built from proteins they designed on a computer. First, you have the cage, which is basically the lockbox. Then you have the latch, which is the tool you want to control, the thing that's locked inside. And finally, you have the key, another molecule that is designed to fit the lock perfectly and set the whole thing in motion.
And I have to stress this isn't just some clever chemistry in a test tube. This system works inside living cells. This gives scientists a level of control over biology that's just, well, it's unprecedented.
Okay, so what can you actually do with a switch like this? This is where it starts to sound like science fiction. You can tell a cell to self-destruct on command. You can pinpoint one specific protein in a cell and basically mark it for deletion. You can act like a traffic cop and tell proteins exactly where to go inside the cell. You're not just observing life, you're programming it.
So let's take just one example.
making a protein vanish. First, scientists attach a caged degron to it. That's basically a destroy me tag. As long as it's locked up in the cage, the cell ignores it, and everything is fine. But then you introduce the key. The key unlocks the cage, the destroy me tag is now visible, and the cell's own garbage disposal system immediately recognizes it and gets rid of the protein. It's that precise.
But here's the kicker. It's not just a binary on-off switch. It's more like a dimmer switch for biology. By changing the key, or how much of the key you add, you can fine-tune the effect. You can turn the protein down just a little bit, or you can crank it all the way down. It gives you this incredible level of precision that they couldn't have even dreamed of in 1989. Okay, so let's zoom out and put these two moments in time right next to each other. The world of 1989, carefully following its blueprint, and the world of today, where we're literally building biological machines. The difference is just, well, you'll see. It's a completely different universe. In 1989, the dream was using a computer to analyze data. Today, the reality is we use a computer to design brand new biology. Back then, they were improving talk therapy and developing early drugs. Today, we can flip a molecular switch and tell a cell to initiate its self-destruct sequence. They look to space for new tech from NASA. We just open a laptop. And we're not talking about tiny improvements here. The power of these tools is just off the charts. That number you see, over 40 times. In one of their experiments, introducing the key molecule boosted a protein's activity by a factor of more than 40. That isn't a step forward, that is a pole vault. But you know what's so amazing? Even though the technology has been totally revolutionized, the spirit of the whole thing hasn't changed a bit. This quote is from a Nobel Prize winner writing in that same 1989 journal. That lust for the unknown, that ceaseless search, that's the engine that has driven us all this way. The motivation is exactly the same.
So in the end, it really feels like we've gone from being students, just trying our best to read the instruction manual for life, to becoming the engineers who are now designing and building the machines ourselves. And that just leaves us with the most incredible question, doesn't it? If this is what we're building today, what on earth comes next? Thanks for watching.